Hey friends, this is Subramani. You're watching me on my YouTube channel, Chester. Due to continuous work stress, I could not post videos continuously for the past 1 month, and I will try my level best to maintain the continuity and to give some valuable content for all the engineering students as well as the data science aspirants. So, with no further delay, let's go into the today's episode. This is a part of the Python 90 days series, and in this today's episode, I'm just going to give you a clear idea about the while loop and the most important concepts that are underlying inside the while loop. So the first thing is like let's get to know about the description about the while loop. With while loop, we can execute a set of statement as long as a condition is true. So we will be having a for loop, while loop, both are like an entry check loop. So if the entry condition is satisfied, we can execute it. And in Python, we don't have something separately like a do while as we have in C++ and Java. So for loop and while loop are available. Again, if you need do while, we can execute it in a different way using the while loop. So initially for while loop, we need to set a condition. So for do while, it is actually a exit check loop, whereas for loop and a while loop, it is an entry check loop. So if we speak about a do while loop, it executes a task first, then it will decide whether to continue it or based on that condition set, and until the condition is true, the process will be executed. So that is what a do while loop is. Initially, one time it will execute a scenario, then after that, if a condition is satisfied, it will keep populating the records. Whereas for while loop, only if the initial condition is satisfied, we can execute the loop. So let's have a simple program. Let me zoom my screen. So for example, first thing what we need to know is, like as I already explained, Python does not support unary increment or a decrement operator. We cannot give I plus plus or I minus. So rather, actually I have given you an example here. So for while loop, initially we should have an initialization. For example, what I am trying to do is I'm trying to print numbers between from 1 to 9. So for that, for example, we have to initially do an initialization condition I is equal to 0, while this I value is lesser than 10, because till 9 only we require, is lesser than 9. So it starts from 0 till 9, and we need to print the value of I. When I give plus plus I, so this is something like a unary increment. So when I give a unary increment, see here, it actually giving me a complete no, it's actually infinite statement. We can see like infinite times the loop is actually. Now what I'm trying to do is same code. I'm starting the value from, like, say I want to print from 1 to 9. So I is equal to 1 is the initialization condition. I'm writing the while statement here. Then I'm going to print the value of I. So after printing the value of I, you have to give at this increment statement. Otherwise the value will not get incremented. So I is equal to I plus 1. So how we can give this? We can also give this in a particular format, I plus operator equal to 1. So this is another way of declaring it. So when we run this particular code, I can get a values ranging from 1 to 9. So now you see, if you don't have this I is equal to I plus 1, let me comment it. Now when you try to run this, you will get the value 1 for an infinite number of times. So this is what we call indefinite times the loop is running, because the loop doesn't get an idea at what value it should stop. For example, I is equal to 1. So yes, 1 is lesser than 10. So it will be keep on printing I. If you give this incremental statement, again it will get increment 2, 3, 4, 5. So when it becomes 10, at the time it knows it should stop. So only if you have the initialization, and if you don't have this increment or decrement operator, the loop will not know at where it stops, because blindly if you give while I is lesser than 10 with respect to this particular value, it keep generating the value. So for loop and while, especially for while loop, we should be aware whether we have given the initialization condition, whether we have written the conditional statement like while I is lesser than 10, and we have written the increment or a decrement operator. These three are the major things for the while loop to execute in a definite times. Otherwise, indefinite times the loop will get executed. Again, for printing the same values between 1 to 9, we can also make use of a range function. Either we can write while I in range of 10. In range means it will start from by default 0 till the value what we specify minus 1. So 10 minus 1 is 9. So if you give 10 till 9 will be displayed. If you want 10, you should give here 11. So this is the way you define your range function. So again, I have set the endpoint, initialization, and the range condition. Let's go with the next example. Here, I need to print witty within the same line, or say like a same row. I need 3 witties. It means 1 row, 3 columns. So for I is equal to 1, initially I is lesser than 3, I need to print witty. So 1 witty will be printed. If you don't give this end is equal to double quotes, next witty will be moved to the next line. For example, see here, I have witty here. I run this code. You can see witty. It's moving to the new line. If I need the witty to print under the same line, we make use of this end function. So when I have this end is equal to double quotes, you can see witty. Now if I leave some space, it prints with space. So within the same line, that is the use of this witty. Now I'm going to share you some pattern matchings that can be answered using the while loop. Again, you can write it using the for loop. In order to cover the while loop topics, I would like to show this. So now I'm going to share you the code, how to implement it in order to get a appropriate output as I have shown here. So you can make a note of this code and try to do some changes in the code and see how the output is turning differently. So now if you see witty gesture. So 1 witty, 3 gesture. So totally I have 3 rows. So in each row I need witty. Then I have 3 columns, considered as a 3 columns. So first column, second column, third column as a gesture. So let's see how to write a code for this. So initially row is equal to 1. So starting with 1 row and till I need 3 rows. So a row should be lesser than or equal to 3. So it will have the values 1, 2, 3. So where this row is getting incremented outside this while function. So I can make it as row. Row is plus 1 is plus equal to 1. So when row is lesser than or equal to 3, I am printing slash n means new line. Every time in a new line witty should be printed, and once the witty is printed, end is equal to underscore. It means that it moves the cursor. It moves the cursor after printing witty. It moves the cursor to the next. No, it doesn't move the cursor to the next line. It moves the cursor to the next space in the same row. And after that, I have a column here. So column totally 1, 2, 3. So column is equal to 1 as initialization, while inside a while. So it's called as a nested while loop. So call lesser than or equal to 3. So I'm going to print gesture. Again, end is equal to double. I'm leaving a space here. So every time what gonna happen is, first for this row value witty will be displayed and moves the cursor to the one space as we have the in statement. Again inside that we have a while loop. For that while loop, for 3 columns I need to print gesture. So one gesture will be printed, move the cursor to the next space. Again one gesture, move the cursor to the next space. So finally this row is over. So we know that column value can hold until only 3 we have given. So 1, 2, 3. Column will get incremented. Because here I have written the incremented value for this nested column. Once this first row is over, the row value should get incremented. So this row should be given outside of the first while loop. If you give the row inside the second while loop, just see how the structure is getting changed. So this is the code in order to replicate this witty gesture. So simple. So this kind of pattern matching is very important for the interview preparations, as well as technically when you want to deep dive into some pattern matching activities. Again, this kind of construction is highly required. In the second example, you can see witty gesture, then gesture, witty gesture. So first time for row is equal to 1, I need to print witty. Then I have to print gesture. The cursor should be moved to the next line, gesture. After that, we will be having another 2 rows where only gesture has to be printed. So this is how the construction is there. So let's see the code. This code is quite similar to the previous code. I am printing witty. After I am giving an end statement, cursor will be moved to the next within the same line. Then I am printing gesture. So we have a column 1. So column should be lesser than or equal to 3, because gesture 3 things. Rather saying column, we can consider this as a row also. So end statement, because of this print statement, we are printing one time the gesture is printed. Next time when another gesture is printed, it is taking it to the new line. Again after that it is taking it to the new line because of this print empty line. No, like it's empty print statement. So you can make a note of this code, try to run this code and make some changes. You will get to know what is the actual output you are getting. So here we have a row after witty, another two rows gesture gesture. It goes in that way. And next thing is, here you can see here witty gesture 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 witty gesture. So we have rows for every row. We have a witty. Inside that, another while statement. In that while statement, three rows should consist of a gesture. So this is the code. So where I, you can treat I as a row. I is equal to 1, lesser than or equal to 3. Witty is printing. After, inside that, row is equal to 1, less than or equal to 3. So this witty, inside this witty, I have a while loop where 3 rows has to be printed and giving a space here. Because of the space before gesture, I am getting some space here, and within the next line it should print, or you can remove this end also, that can be done, and row should be incremented. And because of this print statement, everywhere we are implementing a, everywhere we are moving the gesture to the new line. So that is the thing. And finally this row value is getting incremented. So whenever we increment the row value, it should be outside the inner while loop. It means it should be inside the first while loop. If you putting this row increment inside the second while loop, you will get a different structure. So here I'm going to show you an example related to the numbers. So we see here 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 4, 3, 3, 6. So simple, like 1, 1 multiplied with, after 1, 2. So 1, 2. 2, 2 multiplied with 2. 3 multiplied with 2. So how we are going to write this is like, we have 1, 2, 3 as the major elements. For I is equal to 1, I is lesser than 4, print I. So I value will be printed. Then automatically the cursor will be moved to the next line, because we are not given the end statement after this I. Now I'm going to have row 1. In that row 1, so once it moved to the next line after printing this I, I'll just changed it as a j. So j is equal to 1 and j should be lesser than 3, because we have only two elements. So j lesser than 3 means 1 and 2, as we have j's initial condition as 1. So first element I into j, I value is 1, 1 into 1, 1 will be printed within the same line. So end is equal to, because of the double quote, it moves the cursor to the same line, and now the j is getting incremented. Again this while loop will run. J will be 2 become. J will become as a 2, but I remains same as 1. So 1 into 2 is 2. 2 will be printed. Now again J will be incremented. So J is lesser than 3. No, 3 is not equal. J is not lesser than 3. 3 is equal to 3. So this loop will break. Now what will happen? We will come outside and will increment the row. Now the row value will turn as a 2. It go to the first loop here. So 2. 2 is lesser than 4. Yes, 2 is lesser than 4. It print 2. Again J is equal to 1. It moves a cursor to the next row. So j is equal to 1. 2 into 1 is 2. 2 into 2 is 4. So similarly the loop runs. So what you should do is just try to execute the loop part by part. If you are in the initial stage, only then you will understand the pattern matching. So you should write the code and you should execute the code part by part. Think about the while statement. Initially you should have an increment, we should have an initialization, the conditional statement and the incremental statement. And for pattern matching, end is equal to and double what the double code do, and print empty statement what it is exactly doing. Those things we have to do. Now let's say about the do while statement. So here I have shown you a do while statement. As we know, do while statement is something like only it executes a state, whether it is true or false. It executes the statement once. After that, if the condition is true, the do while statement will be executed. Let's look into this example. So here I am setting the initialization condition while true. So while true, in the sense, by default if you give something true, the loop will execute. So I is equal to 1, cube of 1 will be executed. Then I should be incremented. So when it's become incremented, it becomes 2. 2 is lesser than 10. So if 2 is lesser than 10, it should have given a break statement here. I mean sorry, 2, when I value is greater than 10, it should break. 2 is not greater than 10, so it will not break. Again this loop will execute. 2 cube. Again 2 get incremented. 3 cube, 4 cube, 5 cube, 6 cube, 7 cube. Now again when it turns, when I become 10, 10 is lesser than 10. No, then the statement will break. So to implement a do while using a while loop, you will have an initialization condition, you will have a true statement, the first the real logic for what you are writing, the real logic increment. After that you should write a if statement. Inside the if statement you can set up the breaks condition. So this is the stop case. Here you will be having the stop case. Inside the while loop you will be having the real condition or the real logic for which you need to run the loop. And in while statement, by default you will be having something true, and you will be having a assignment operator or initialization. So initialization, default true condition, real logic, and if statement with inside that while loop. This executes the do while statement. So I hope this session is very helpful for you, and please subscribe my channel and try to practice the concepts whatever I have shown. Until meeting you in the next episode, this is Subramani signing off from my YouTube channel, Witty Jester.